there are microparticles that have been created from the explosions of units 1 through 3, and these things have been found as far away as towns like Tsukuba, which is 127 miles away. They found a microparticle that combines either cesium or plutonium, and if that's ingested like dust and breathed into your lung, that can cause a lung cancer, or it can get into other parts of your body and cause cancers there too. Now, they want to clean the plant up. They hope they can get all the debris and the spent fuel out by 2031, but they've had problems, but they've been very inventive, and they have created robots to do the work because people can't go inside these reactors because the radiation count is so high that you would get a fatal dose in a few minutes. But the robots aren't doing very well either because the radiation has disabled them within minutes. But they keep trying, and they hope they can get everything done by 2031. For the Olympics, they want to feed the Olympians food grown in Fukushima. The South Koreans object to that, for example, and so should you, because remember that everything that's grown in Fukushima, theoretically the dust and the water and the rain and the snow can bring more contamination back into the plants. The cattle have been monitored pretty closely. Theoretically, they say it's safe, but they have to be fed with hay and food not grown or produced in Fukushima. So that's another question. And then there's another way to measure radioactivity, and that's becquerels per kilogram. So for food, in Germany, for example, they only allow 5 becquerels per kilogram. Japan allows 100 becquerels per kilogram. So they're testing and saying that the food is safe, but they're testing at 100 becquerels per kilogram. Becquerel is 1 disintegration of a nucleus. So these foods aren't going to be safe either. Now they also have this water that they've been collecting. What happened was they can't find the nuclear cores. The cores have gone through the containment and of each of these reactor cores, and the cores, they say they can't find them because they've melted into the bottom and into the water, into the groundwater. So the groundwater is contaminated. Every day it's contaminated. That's why there's 150 tons of radioactive water that are leaking into the Pacific Ocean every day. And that's why you should think about that when you think about going to Fukushima and participating in the Olympics there. The company that runs the plant, TEPCO, they really want to just dump all the water that they've been holding in tanks into the Pacific Ocean, but the locals won't let them. Of course, the fishing industry doesn't want that. The fish seem to be testing better lately, but if they dump that water, it won't be safe. The other thing you should know is that in the water, they've been using this thing called an advanced liquid processing system to remove the radionuclides from the water. But the thing is, this cannot filter out something called tritium. Tritium, according to the grandfather of health physics, Dr. Carl Morgan, said this is the only radionuclide for which we assume as much is taken into the body via skin penetration as by inhalation. It is the most invasive of all radionuclides and distributes itself rather uniformly to all organs and all body tissues in the body. It presents a somatic, genetic, and teratogenic, which means cancerous, risk. It cannot be separated from liquid waste by evaporation, a process used to concentrate most radionuclides, especially in the reactors. So that's what's in those big tanks of water. And the tritium has a half-life of 12.3 years and a hazardous life of 123 to 246 years. So that water really has to be held for at least 123 years. And the TEPCO company wants to dump it in the ocean. So those are some of the things you should think about. The torch run, they have hot spots where you should know that the background radiation that everybody's exposed to on the Earth is about 100 millirems per year. And some of these hot spots have 6,000 or 62,000 millirems exposure per year at the rate that we measure it. And it's not safe. The reason you haven't heard about this, they have a State Secrets Act in Japan that they are using to intimidate writers and TV broadcasters. So you could go to jail for 10 years if you publish or write or say anything that they want to prosecute you for that says anything negative about nuclear power or Fukushima. And you should know that when these kids are going to be running on the roads, the junior high school kids, because they've melted into the bottom, the cores, going to be running on these cores. They say they can't find them because they've melted into the bottom, the cores. They say they can't find them because they've melted into, every day it's contaminated. That's why there's 150 tons into the groundwater. So the groundwater is contaminated. Every day it's contaminated. That's why there's 150 tons into the groundwater. So the groundwater is contaminated. Every day it's contaminated. That's why there's 150 tons into the groundwater. So the groundwater is contaminated. The conclusions that I want to leave you with are that Pacific Ocean every day. And that's why you should think about that when you think about going to Fukushima and participating in the Olympics. They're leaking into the Pacific Ocean every day. Warning everybody about the contamination still